Dear friends, Operator Starsky here, and this is In Time. Guys, please subscribe to this channel because you can find all kinds of recent updates from Ukraine analysis and all kinds of interesting guests, not including myself, of course, but I will be present here as well. Hopefully, we'll see you soon.
Hello, and welcome everyone to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Suter, and with me today is Isandring. Isandring, how are you?
I am outstanding. You?
You know, I was kind of like a little low energy, and I was going to have to, build it up for that. And now I'm feeling so much. Nice. This is a great way to start a show. Thank you all for joining us. You're joining us.
I lift you up. So I can... Oh, sorry.
And now he's singing, and the numbers in the live chat have just plummeted. We've gone into... wow, I didn't realize you can go into negative viewers.
What? I will shut up and stop singing the instant somebody decides to super chat and ask me to stop.
Please, somebody, I beg you. We've already gotten a couple. In fact, we also got a couple from the premiere just a few minutes ago. We wanted to do a short on so that you can just if somebody doesn't understand tariffs, you can just give it to your friends. It's 10 minutes. This is how tariffs work. This is how they've been used in the past, and this is why they're not what you think they are. Whether or not Trump understands them, my suspicion is he had no idea what they really were, which is hard to believe because of the kind of business that he purportedly does. But it really does seem like he doesn't understand them. It's clear to me somebody has explained them to him by now, and he has no interest in admitting that he made any mistakes, no interest in sort of going back. And I kind of understand why maybe he's just cutting corners and he thinks that there's some leverage behind this. We're going to get into all of that. We have 2 super chats. Thank you to, I'm just talking so that he can't sing. Michelle Ferguson, $4.99, make it stop, and Savvy, $5, please stop singing. And I know what you're thinking is, Andrew, 2 super chats do not cancel each other out. That's the audience has spoken.
Don't forget UTV and Ham.
Yeah, well, we've actually got. Thank you. We have UTV and Ham. Who did $10 support to keep the bills paid. Thank you very much. It really is now, especially for us, more important than ever. So we really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for that, and also for gifting the membership, and also 𝐋𝐚𝐬. Hi, Nick and company, and everyone in the chat. We've got a few from the previous premiere, so I'm gonna try to get to those, but I've got a couple of different windows open and I'm trying to figure everything out. This is going to be about the tariffs, and we're going to talk a little bit about it and what Trump maybe thinks he's doing and what he's likely to do, and we're going to try to discuss that and sort that out. If you've got any questions, tag me or super chat it and we'll get to it. But before that, really quick, and I don't want to derail the whole show, but this did just happen. It's in the breaking on the Discord. Against his promise to do so, and I can only imagine the position he's in as a father, Joe Biden has pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, for the tax and gun crimes for which he was convicted and or pled guilty. So any thoughts on that, Isandring?
I really don't like it. It smacks of nepotism and favoritism and all of the bad isms that you want to talk about. However, it is within his power. He has the legal rights to do that. And I can kind of understand why he may be interested in pardoning him. And I'm actually a bit surprised he hasn't pardoned him for things yet to come. Because according to the Trump administration people, they plan on prosecuting people who have broken the law, according to them. So I would imagine Hunter is on their target list of people to continue to prosecute. So I can kind of understand why he did it too. So, and I wasn't a fan when Trump decided to pardon his friends, but again, that is a legal power of the president. I just don't like how it's being used recently.
I really don't think it should be, I don't think the president should be able to pardon based on the idea was to correct injustices, but if you're, if it's a family member or a friend or a case that you're somehow involved with, obviously you can't be impartial. So, I don't think it was ever intended to pardon people, but Trump pardoned basically 90% of the people that he knows doing all sorts of criminal actions. So my only hope, I guess, out of this is that people go, oh my God, how could Biden pardon his son? And then realize that if they're on the right, that's pretty hypocritical considering what Trump did. If they don't want a corrupt government where, the president can pardon anybody he wants to, including, crime families or whatever. Not that Biden was that, but I think Trump's was. If you don't want a president who can do that, then don't support presidents who do that. And Trump is the poster child of that. But I'm not sure that anybody on the right is going to really be that reflective about it, self-reflective about it.
My whole thing about it is, if when you're looking at your opposition party doing something and you're like, hey, that's bad, you shouldn't be doing that, then you should make damn sure that your side isn't doing it too, because a lot of the times they are. And so if I don't want my ideological opposite, I guess you'd say, my political opponents, whom I don't agree with politically, if I don't want them doing it, then I think that it's just something that we should come together and say, hey, let's not allow anybody to do this.
And Spider Fate brings up a really good point too, which is that Biden really did, guilty or innocent, and I suspect he's guilty of more than a few things, guilty or innocent, he wasn't persecuted because he broke the law. He was persecuted because he was the son of the president, and the United States Congress got involved. Now, if there was any allegation or evidence that this somehow affected the president, and that the president was involved in any of this, that would be one thing. But there was none. They just said, oh, you're the son of the president. We don't like the president because he's in the other party, so let's go after his son. So, yeah, that was another thing that I think, in my mind, softens the whiff of impropriety with him pardoning his own son. It's definitely, I don't think this is a practice that we should be allowing going further. But having said that, what he's done is not nearly as bad as who Trump pardoned. So now, moving on to the tariffs, we did, and we're going to get into this because Trump has promised a whole bunch of new tariffs for completely different reasons. The BRICS, all of the BRICS countries, which does include China. So Michelle Ferguson was asking, Trump is going to tariff them 100%. Doesn't that include China? Yes, it does. I don't know if China is going to get 160% by this. I don't know. I'm glad to know that Trump can count to 100. So I guess improvement there. We'll get to it. Aaron Colson, $10. I'm guessing Trump assumes foreign businesses will lower costs by reducing profit to continue sales, then pressure their own governments to appease Trump, continue to make profits, and or he doesn't care. Well, essentially, I think that's roughly what he's at this point expecting. I think originally he thought that he was actually taxing the countries. So, he says, we're going to impose a tariff on China. And, okay. The reason he wanted to do these tariffs ostensibly, this is what he's told people, is that the U.S. has a very big drug problem, specifically fentanyl. And he's very concerned about fentanyl. I don't believe he cares about fentanyl. I don't believe he knows how to spell fentanyl. But apparently, he's concerned about it. So he is going to target the countries that are most, quote, responsible for it getting into the United States. This would be Canada, Mexico, and China. How and why? China manufactures a lot of the components that go into making fentanyl, and fentanyl is created in Canada and Mexico and imported here. Isandring, do you know who imports it? Or who gets it into the country?
I do not know who gets it into the country.
American citizens. Americans go visit Canada or Mexico, grab fentanyl, and bring it into the U.S. So the problem is that American citizens are breaking the law and bringing drugs into this country. Trump's solution is to punish the other countries and say, you guys have to find a way to fix this problem, and I'm going to tax you until you do. The problem is, not only is it not their fault, not only are they not the ones breaking the law, but they're not the ones getting taxed either. If you saw the previous video, you already know that the tariff is the tax on imported goods, so it's the importer that pays it, and if the U.S. is importing them, that's us. We'll get into that in a minute. But at any rate, he has said he's going to put these tariffs in place, and they will continue until the drug problem in the U.S. is solved. That's how long they're going to stay in place, until the drug problem is over. The war on drugs was declared by Ronald Reagan in the 80s. We've gotten not very far with it, and he's going to keep these tariffs in place until that's done. Oh dear. Yeah. Okay.
Talk about a subjective standard.
And yeah, I was going to be, which is I think that's the only saving grace, which is he basically gets to say, oh, fentanyl is down 90%, so I'll lift the tariffs, which was sort of what I also said in the video, which is it's he can just make it up, say he's accomplished it, and it doesn't mean anything. Now, the problem with these tariffs, again, first of all, is this is where it gets a little complicated, and I'm really glad to have Isandring on because he knows a lot about this, and this is where what people will say is you're the one who pays the taxes. That is mostly true, but because it's not entirely true, and there's some sort of wiggle room, and there's nuance to it, people will say, well, no, the corporation will make it up somehow. Yes, the corporation will make it up somehow, or they'll go under. They have to make it up somehow. How do they make it up? Well, they lower employee wages, which if you work for one of these companies is a bad thing for you. They'll find ways to cut costs and do all this other stuff, but they've usually already done that about to the best of their ability. I mean, that's kind of, they're already running at maximum efficiency, presumably. So, they can do a little bit more of that, and you'll notice it. You'll notice they'll dim the lights, they'll do whatever it takes to cut corners anywhere they can. But ultimately, the easiest and fastest way to do it is to raise prices. And if a competing business is not affected by any of these tariffs, they'll raise the prices, but just by a little bit less, make a lot more money for that one little business, and steal all the customers from the other business. So some businesses will actually make more money. A few do. Most don't. And the net effect entirely, in terms of who pays it, is us. What you and I, one way or another, pay the entire cost, whether it's reduced wages, whether the price of everything isn't going up 60% just because there's a 60% tariff on China. So when you discuss this with people, they say, well, the price of everything isn't going up 60%. No, businesses do make it up other ways too. But the bulk of it is in increasing prices and or decreasing wages, which is roughly the same thing. So any thoughts on that so far, Xander?
It's, again, when you start talking about tariffs and who's paying what, it's like you can have what is the end effect or what is the technically correct way of describing exactly what's going on. Most people don't really care about the technicals. They care about what is the end effect. And the end effect is for whatever industry is getting tariff placed on it. It's generally used as a protectionist for the country to protect their own industry for things. But the bottom line is that it's the consumer that ends up getting hurt the most by tariffs. Now, I am not specifically against tariffs because the United States originally functioned entirely. The United States government functioned entirely on tariffs and excise taxes, because any direct tax placed upon the citizenry had to be apportioned, and nobody wants to do that. So until the 16th Amendment was passed, giving us an income tax. Now, if Trump had said, hey, we're going to eliminate the income tax and we're going to go back to the government subsisting off of excise and import taxes, then I would be fine with that, because you would have an offsetting tax relief in the form of income tax. But that's not really what's happening. They're just adding more tariffs. Tariffs can have positive benefits. However, the general population, is still going to bear the brunt of the cost of those tariffs. So in a completely free market, for those people who want, hey, laissez-faire capitalism, let's let the markets operate, tariffs are a bad thing because they manipulate and tweak the markets. They apply pressure in places where it wouldn't normally occur. So Trump doesn't seem to be doing this for protectionism of U.S. industry, because it will raise prices, and eventually the U.S. made products will be cheaper, and that's where people are going to end up getting them. Now they're going to pay a higher price overall, but they're going to be buying U.S. products, and there are some ancillary benefits to that in building up U.S. manufacturing and U.S. distribution, et cetera, that will create more jobs, and so more people will be employed doing that. But on the whole, it's still a net negative. Because if another place can produce something for cheaper, then the average consumer is better off being able to purchase that for a less price, have more capital available to do other things with. So it's kind of like the broken windows fallacy. So I mean, it can be used discretionary, with discretion, and it can be useful, and it can be helpful. But Trump's not talking about using it this way. He's trying to punish other countries for certain things, and he's trying to use them to get other countries to do what he wants them to do. And I don't particularly like that reasoning behind imposing tariffs, because you are hurting the American people doing it.
So I think that's a great point too. Tariffs have actually been very, aside from that is the way the sole income source for the U.S. As we first started. It's also a way but tariffs are supposed to be targeted. So you take a specific industry that you would, for whatever reason, rather have American manufacturing or American producers of a certain product be bolstered over foreign ones, then you make a tariff on their competitors. But you pick and choose, and it's a scalpel. It's a tool that you use very precisely, and the other country's going to get pissed off. Now, the reason the other countries get pissed off, and we'll start with China. The reason China gets pissed off, and this was the super chat we got earlier from Aaron, talking about that, is, China makes a lot of money. U.S. dollars are going to China when we buy goods there and import them here. So they make a lot of money. So when those products become more expensive one way or another, they're not getting more expensive because of anything China's doing. They're becoming more expensive in the U.S. because they're now being taxed in the U.S. So now anything you get from China will be 60% more expensive just to get it off the dock. So anybody who's importing Chinese goods is going to try to find another way to get that aluminum, rubber, whatever it is they're looking for. And there will be other ways. And other countries, Venezuela, will step up and say, hey, we'll only charge you an extra 45%, and we'll ship it to you, because they're going to take advantage of it too. So even if we find other people who are willing to give us those goods, we're going to pay a premium, because they know our only other alternative is the 60% tariff goods from China. So either way, the price of all of these goods is going to go up for the U.S. So exports in China go down. China as a country starts making less money. China does not like this. Now, I don't think this was what Trump was thinking, because I don't think he understands tariffs. I think he was thinking, hey, I'm taxing all their products, and more of their money is going to come here. No. less money is going to go to them and to us. This is a burden. This is a blockade to trade. Trade is almost one of the universal goods, as far as I can tell. The more trade there is, the basics of trade, real simple. In economic terms, trade is taking something for which you have a surplus and trading it for something you need. You have too much of one thing and you say, hey, I'll give you some of my too much for something that I don't have quite enough of. And if both sides do it, guess what? It's a net positive for both sides. Both sides win. In economics, there are very few games, very few interactions that are anything but zero sum. Trade is one of them. It's in its ideal form, done properly, trade is an absolute good for both sides. And this is a significant barrier to trade. So U.S. is going to lose money. China is going to lose money. Now, China isn't going to like that. So what are they going to do? They're going to say, fine, 60% tariff on all imports to China. So that means anybody who's selling goods to China is immediately going to see the amount of goods that China's interested in buying drop, because every Chinese citizen now has to pay that extra 60%. And they're getting hit with it. Now, China doesn't like it because they know it's damaging their economy, but it's the only way to deal with a country that's acting like a spoiled brat and hitting everybody with tariffs. Which is like, and you get a tariff, and you get a tariff, and you get a tariff. And yes, he's announced more. We mentioned that earlier. It's not just these three countries now. He's promising tariffs on, I think now, about 16 or 17 countries. A trade war with China nearly put us into a depression. I think it put us into a recession. A trade war with China. It would have if it had gone on for one more quarter. I think you may remember better than I, Isandring. But now he wants to start a trade war with our top three partners and maybe 16 other countries. Oh dear.
There are some very good reasons that you may wish to impose tariffs on China, especially China. I don't see particularly grand reasons for putting tariffs on, Canada or Mexico, for example, or Central America. There can be some, but generally you're going to use tariffs to protect critical industries that are, again, critical to your own country's, survival, either economic survival or military survival. So something like, say, I don't know, steel manufacturing. Utilizing tariffs to protect the U.S. steel industry can be a worthwhile thing to do, recognizing there's a cost to that. Steel prices are going to go up. However, by doing that, you're essentially taking protectionist actions to save your own manufacturing base, so that in the case of a war, we can do things like, build a aircraft carrier or something, because we have the steel and we're not reliant on a country we may actually be at war with to get said steel, and they can cut us off and suddenly we can't replace our military equipment. So there are genuinely good reasons where we accept the cost of tariffs in order to protect some critical industry in the United States, so it doesn't all go away. So we need to maintain a good manufacturing base for that. There can also be some targeted things, especially from a country, say, like China, where when they open up some of the electrical control panels and stuff, they find back doors that would allow them to get in. So you can use targeted tariffs to punish China for those specific things. But if you put just a blanket one on there, then there's no real motivation to change their behavior. You're just starting a trade war. If you do it in something very, very targeted, like, look, all electrical transformers, all electrical control buses, all electrical control systems coming from China are going to have a 60% tariff added to them, because we don't really want people buying Chinese stuff, and instead of just outright banning it. So they can be very useful, recognizing that there is a cost to them. And that cost is going to be borne by the U.S. population. However, there can be very good reasons for it. Reasons worth pursuing, worth paying that cost for. But in this case, they're so broad and such a big bludgeon that I don't see what he really is going to achieve aside from some sort of trade war. I mean, they're going to take retaliatory action. They're not going to just take this sitting down, and overall, it's not particularly great for the American people. Now, if he was going to say, hey, I'm going to put these broad sweeping tariffs in place and I'm eliminating the income tax. Okay, well, we're trading one tax for another tax. Only now we're not having a direct tax on the American people. I mean, I think it matters what exactly it is you tax, because you tend to get less of it, whatever it is you tax. And it would be nice to not tax income, because that's something we really kind of want to go up in the United States. So I've never been a fan of the income tax. So he's not doing that. So it's like the reasons that he stated for the tariffs, I have a huge problem with, because they're just not economically smart. It's like, I don't care if Biden was doing it. I don't care if Trump's doing it. It's just the reasons given and the motivations behind this is just not good economics, and it's going to hurt things. And I've seen several people talk about, oh, well, these tariffs are inflationary. No, they're not. Tariffs actually can be deflationary, because they're sucking money supply out of the system and putting it back in the United States government, depending upon what the government actually does with that money. People keep saying, oh, well, inflation is prices rising. No, it's not. Inflation is the expansion of the money supply. Inflation is actually your dollar buys less. Your dollar is worth less. Rising prices by themselves do not constitute inflation. It's, if the prices are going up because the value of a dollar is going down because there's suddenly twice as many dollars, then that's inflation. And generally, inflation is caused by monetary and fiscal policy of the government. Period. End of story. And taxation actually can lower inflation by withdrawing money from the money supply. However, they're directly doing it by punishing the American citizens. They created inflation, and now they're going to make the U.S. citizens pay for it through taxation. That's kind of a vicious, underhanded way of doing it. But it's still going to cause prices to go up for American families who are already having issues. And
wages to go down.
Yeah. In some cases, wages will go up in some industries that have to expand, or the wages may not go up, but job availability will go up. There will be some ancillary positive benefits to them, but I don't believe, and I think history has proven every time we've tried tariffs, that the cost always outweighs any of the benefits that we get, unless you're striving for a very specific, say, national security benefit. Like, we don't want our steel industry to go away. It's like, yeah, that is still going to cost a lot, but we have accepted that cost is worth what we're getting. So I don't like the proposals for these tariffs, and I don't think they're targeted. They're just a big bludgeon. I'm just going to throw all these tariffs at you and hope that it does something. And yeah, it's going to do something. It's going to cause quite a few massive disruptions in our markets.
I think you gave a great example with the steel. So we've decided we need steel to be manufactured in the U.S. so that if there's a war, you can't cut off our supply of steel because we make it here. So we've instituted tariffs, which have gotten retaliatory tariffs back. We've taken a hit on this, but we've agreed to take the hit, or decided as a country to take the hit, so that we are more self-reliant if should a war break out. So that's a spectacular example. There's a question from A.F. Kaplan. If these tariffs are imposed and the economy goes sideways, is there anything Congress can do to stop it? That's an excellent question. I will get to that in a second. I don't think these are going to get very far, and here's why. Elon Musk is one of his bestest buddies right now, presumably, although apparently Musk may already be out the door. If he's already out the door, I have a sneaking suspicion I know why. Musk owns a small company most people have never heard of called Tesla. Tesla makes cars. These cars are unique because they're electric. The number one place where these cars are sold, in fact, 80% of them are sold, is a country called China. These cars will receive an equal 60% tariff on them. This will destroy Tesla. It cannot survive if the Chinese market vanishes. It can't. So, if Musk is sticking around, it's because either he thinks he can convince Trump not to do it, or he's already convinced Trump not to do it, and Trump's going to back out or do whatever. He's committed in writing to 10% tariffs on a couple different countries, 15%. He has not committed in writing to the 60% tariff on China. That's the only one from the campaign trail that he hasn't translated yet to something in writing that he says he's going to do. The Wall Street Journal did a survey of 39 economists on all sides of the economic spectrum, both from the conservative to the more liberal side, and not a single one of them said that this plan was good for the U.S. economy. Not a single one of them approved of the plan, and all of them said that Trump should not put any of these tariffs on any of the countries, let alone all three of them. 39 economists from the Wall Street Journal, not exactly a bastion of liberalism. So, yeah, this plan isn't particularly well liked. Again, Trump's kind of cray-cray, so my hope and suspicion is that he's rethinking this, or they're going to end up being a lot less, and he's going to say, well, I was able to do a lot less because I was able to get them to work on this drug problem ahead of time. Drug problem? The drugs... Oh, it's solved? Okay, we'll only keep 10% or whatever he's going to end up with. It's still not going to be good for us. But my suspicion is that's where he's going to land. You cannot be friends with Elon Musk and propose a 60% tariff on China. Those two things are mutually exclusive. So I'm not as worried about it as I could be. Having said that, tariffs are actually were originally supposed to be imposed by Congress. And again, this is an area where Isandring is going to know more than I. Congress eventually sort of just passed specifically tariffs on to the executive branch and said, okay, the president can issue these. And it was specifically because it was decided that tariffs were needed in particular as a war power. And as the commander-in-chief, it's really the president who should be setting them. And that at a time of war, he can set any tariff against any country he wants, even whether we're at war with them or not. And that's what the executive branch can do. And then they codified an expansion. Isandring, you may know better than I, sort of essentially saying that the president can do it. But since the original Constitution says that all taxation is in the purview of Congress, I'm not sure that they can't roll that back if they want to. What do you think?
Yes, they can force this. It would have to go up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's been kind of holding lately that you can't abdicate, duties and responsibilities described by the Constitution. That's kind of the basis for people going after the ATF and the EPA and stuff, saying, hey, you don't have this legislative power. Congress can't grant you that legislative power because they can't abdicate their duties and responsibilities. So yes, they can absolutely come in and say, hey, this is rightfully a power according to the Constitution of the legislative branch. And while the legislative branch had erroneously given this power or authorized this power to be wielded by the president, that's not actually the case. That's not really constitutional, and so we're rescinding that. It's going to force a bit, I hate to say a constitutional crisis because it's not that big of I don't think it quite rises to a real crisis level, but they can really push it into the courts. And I believe that if the court's going to remain at least somewhat consistent in their interpretations of these things, they're going to have to agree that Congress didn't really have the authority to grant the president authority to manage and impose tariffs. That was something that had to be done by Congress. So if they want to push it, they can. It's going to take a long time. And in the meantime, unless they can get a judge to put an injunction in place stopping Trump from imposing tariffs, it's going to take a while to work through all of that.
And what I'm going to do is let's cover everything he's done, because he's added a lot of countries now to the tariffs. There's 16, 17. I don't know how many. It's going to change a bit because he took something that was already FUBAR and really managed to screw it up. But $4.99 super chat from the Greg Terry Experience. Greg Terry says, Nick, waxing eloquent. Appreciate you, Nick, your work and your friendship, and the great bonus of Isandring. Greg Terry, sir, thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you for your support, and I hope we get a chance to chat. In my life, for most of my life, I have been the busiest person I know, between like writing books, doing shows, raising 2 kids, yada, yada, yada. I've had a bit more time recently, and I'm sitting there going like, now I get to talk to people, and who do I meet? Greg Terry, who is now the busiest person I know, between like traveling around the world, literally going to Ukraine because, hey, a place that's negative 70 degrees sounds, ideal to me. Wow. So really walks the walk, talks the talk. Greg, thank you very much for your super chat and for your support. And it's delightful as always. And hopefully we will have a time not just to do more shows together, but to sit and chat at some point. Thank you very much for your support. Look forward to watching more of your stuff and having you around on In Time more. So we're talking about these tariffs, and it's very hard to know, again, because it's Trump. What's he going to do? Again, the fact that he's buddy-buddy with Elon Musk does give me reason to not take this tariff stuff too seriously, because Musk can't allow that. That has to be a hard no for Musk, unless I'm missing something.
Not necessarily.
Maybe.
Not necessarily.
Why is that?
Because Tesla does more than just make cars. That's a huge portion of them. That's what they started doing. But Tesla is also manufacturing a staggering amount of industrial-sized batteries for things like wind and solar projects, for electrical grid backup and power plants starting. So they do a lot of that as well. And right now, the kind of lithium battery market is kind of cornered by China. It's like most of the components, most of the materials, most of the mines, etc., most of the solar panels are controlled mostly by China. It's a huge proportion. So if imposing tariffs against all of that stuff can cause industry, either nearshored or perhaps even in this country, to help spring up, because it's now become economically viable for them to actually manufacture it, because they can sell it at a price at which they can make a profit. So that industry may start springing up more here in the United States. Musk may take a hit in the short term for this. However, he may be looking at a more long-term game of, well, if we can get most of this, or at least a good portion of this manufacturing process, at least nearshored, preferably done here in the United States, then he believes that the future of the country is going to be electric, and battery technologies are going to be very important in that. He may wish to try and get most of that here so he can circumvent China. So it's not. I'm not saying that is the case. Yeah. It's just a plausible.
Well, that's a way for him to mitigate it. That makes a lot of sense. I'd considered another way. I still think it's a hard. One of the reasons Twitter, when he took over Twitter became far more compliant with Chinese restrictions and censorship. And one of the reasons is because he doesn't want to piss off China. And he doesn't want China can just slap an import tax, slap a tariff on all electronic vehicles coming from the U.S., and all of a sudden the head of Twitter has a very serious problem. So, no, that's a very good point. So let's talk about what he has said about the taxes, about these tariffs, and where they're going. On the campaign trail, he talked about it varied between 10 or 20% on all imports. As well as an additional 60% on Chinese imports. The International Trade and Consumer Technology Association has said that would be, I'm trying to find aside from sparking a trade war, that would cause, quote, massive supply chain disruptions in the United States, largely from the Mexican and Canadian imports. Again, Mexico, most of our car parts come from Mexico, so they said, quote, a recipe for disaster for the North American economy. Unusually unambiguous. The National Retail Federation said that this would cause, quote, they said, quote, lower prices and increased tariffs are mutually exclusive. It's one or the other, not both. Okay, I'll skip that one. So what they are now looking at is he seems to have settled on 25% tariff on Mexico, who is our largest trading partner, and we import. This says 400 billion from Mexico, but I think we import slightly more from China, so we'll have to look at that. But so 25% on Mexico, 25% on Canada, and China right now, he has not actually committed to what he's going to do there. The last he said on the campaign trail was 60%, and right now, I think it's the 𝐒𝐸𝐜𝐚𝐬. What is it? The 𝐒𝐸𝐜𝐚𝐬 Institute has said that they are assuming that he is going to do this, assuming the worst, which is a 60% tariff. But he has now gone a step further and said that he is going to put a 100% tariff on BRICS countries if they pursue creating a new currency. And this, again, Isandring, is another one where I knew you'd be interested in that, because this has to do with the dollar as the world reserve currency. The dollar is currently the world reserve currency. That allows us a lot of economic leverage. It's been a huge boon for us, but there have been some signs that there are countries that have been getting rather ticked at us and are thinking that maybe they want to get off the dollar as the reserve currency. BRICS is a new group of emerging economies. China and Russia are essentially the founders of this group. This group includes Brazil, India, South Africa, and recently Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Ethiopia, and Egypt have formally joined. Now, it's a bit like the EU. It's an economic alliance, and the goal is increased prosperity and, believe it or not, reduced tariffs for each other so that they can improve their own economies and boost the standard of living for each of these countries. Now, they've been talking about creating and using their own currency, sort of like the euro. This would be a currency that would compete with the dollar. The problem is that you're getting the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iran, a number of countries that are in OPEC. And there's been some signs, and we talked about this actually last year, that there were OPEC countries that were starting to say they would not accept the US dollar in exchange for oil. And the reason this was an issue was because if one or two countries do it, nobody really cares. But if they can get a whole bunch of countries to do this, all of a sudden, the dollar becomes not the world reserve currency anymore. It's not something that just happens overnight or with the banging of a gavel, but by a bunch of countries deciding that they're just not going to accept the dollar. So BRICS is considering creating a new currency. Trump has said if they decide they're going to do that, he is going to put a 100% tariff on everything from any one of those countries. China is included in that country. I don't know if anyone's bothered to ask him if that 100 is just like on top of the 60, or if it's now 160% on China at this point. Does it really matter? Just asking for a friend, I guess. Isandring, any thoughts on this?
Thankfully, so far, it's been very difficult for the BRICS nations to be able to come up with something that can rival the US dollar insofar as like its stability or its perceived stability, its value, etc. It's not, as much as I'm like, we should be very grateful that we have the world reserve currency. It allows us to do a lot of things. We can export a hell of a lot of inflationary pressures overseas because, you know, everybody wants dollars. So we can really minimize inflationary pressures when we expand the money supply so dramatically, you know, because dollars are in demand everywhere. That's why places like Greece and Ireland and Spain and Portugal, why they had sovereign debt crises, because they couldn't do that. We could. So thankfully, it's very difficult to kind of supplant the dollar. There's so many people for so many decades that have been using the dollar. All of their infrastructure is set up to use the dollar. It's like it can happen, and we're going to see it coming if it does. So it's again, it's not going to be something that just you wake up the next morning and wow, U.S. dollar no longer world reserve currency. You're going to see a lot of these dominoes start to fall, and they're starting to fall. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can actually come up with something to really rival the U.S. dollar, because nobody has much faith in any of the independent countries' economies. So I guess we can keep an eye on that. At least that's going to be a developing story for quite some time. And let's just add even more tariffs to the. I wish I could say that my ostensible side, is strategic in this. I mean, if you follow along with, I just suddenly forgot his name. We did a show on him with the commander about some of the issues. Peter 𝐍𝐤𝐜𝐚𝐬. If you're an astute follower of Peter 𝐍𝐤𝐜𝐚𝐬, you will be aware that Mexico is currently kind of sort of emerging as the next China, where they'll have enough skilled labor. Right now, they're expanding. There's a bit of a bottleneck there in trying to do that, but they're going to kind of take over what China's doing, where everybody's going to be trying to get their stuff manufactured there, because they'll have the skilled labor to do it. And China is on the edge of kind of implosion because they're having a massive population decrease. They're really kind of collapsing. Many of their markets are on the edge of collapse and are only being propped up by government action because they're a dictatorship. They can actually keep things running for quite a while. So I really wish that I could say, well, Trump's being really strategic in some of this, because we're going to take a bit of hit with this tariff stuff, and then go out to the American people and just say, hey, look, this is going to suck a little bit. Let's get out there and get our American spirit together. Let's help each other. Let's get through this, and we can kind of shift this, mega manufacturing giant from China. Let's do some damage to their economy. Let's knock them back a couple of decades, and kind of let their own issues collapse their economic power. And let's get that shifted over to Mexico, who's supposed to be a fairly decent friend and ally of the United States. Let's help prop them up. Let's get them up into like first world status, so that they're kind of a world economic power, because we're right here with them, and we can help them do that. But no, that's not what's happening. And I wish I could say that this is what the plan is, except when you go out and specifically contradict that all over social media. I'm like, I can't even make the argument that this is what's going on, that these are really strategic, and just give it a little bit of time. It's going to hurt in the short term. It's going to have massive benefits in the long term, and just give it a chance. Let's get this in place. Let's get these things done. And I can't even make the argument, because not a soul is talking in any kind of strategic manner about how they're using these. There's this nefarious, they know what they're doing, and they're, more or less using the threats of these, they've got to make them believe that we really will impose them, but we're really not. And I'm like, these are really bad reasons. And everything that you put forward just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, you're losing the entire Austrian wing of the economists to this. All of them are like, no, this is really bad for the reasons that you're saying this. It's like, no, this is not going to work the way you think it's going to work. It's frustrating.
Even Keynesians know this isn't going to work. I'm sorry, but even Keynesians are like, "What the fuck are you doing?" So I know,
like I said, there can be
economics.
There can be some really super good reasons to be doing a lot of these things, and I could really get behind a lot of it. If even just my kind of fanciful, hey, how could this be of benefit? Because there's going to be pain. That's going to happen because we're changing a system that everybody's been ingrained in. And I'm personally of the opinion that this system is going to change eventually, because it cannot keep going the way that it's going. It will eventually change, and that's going to cause a lot of pain too. So it's like we're facing some painful times economically. I don't see how we get out of it. However, if you're talking about, hey, we're going to start pivoting some of the world actors here, especially away from China, who is not our friend. I mean, I want to point that out. China is not our friend. It's like the kind of intellectual theft they're engaged in, the kind of hacking they're engaged in, the kinds of backdoors they're putting into our systems, that they are engaged in. They're not our friends. They're not our allies. It's like they may not necessarily be our enemy, but we definitely don't want to cozy up and get super buddy with them either. I would much rather see that with some of the problems that Mexico may have. I would still rather see Mexico do that because they're on our border and we have direct ties to Mexico. So I mean, I see some of these strategic moves that could be placed, to try and restructure the global supply chains and stuff to benefit essentially North America the most, and kind of knock China off as an economic power. And I'm like, okay, well, some of these may be really laudable goals, except you aren't saying a damn thing about any of them. Now, maybe they don't want China to know that that's the reason. Maybe they want everybody in the world to kind of think that, oh, he's just a complete buffoon when he's really playing underwater 5D chess or some crazy thing like that. But I mean, it doesn't make sense. And I want to make these arguments that some of these things, and like, hey, there's a lot of kind of rumblings from Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon both about, hey, would you like to, how many people would like to see the IRS be eliminated? And of course I have to reply, well, fair tax now. I'm a very big believer in the fair tax. I believe that it will be a very good thing for the United States if we were to convert to a fair tax instead. Get rid of the damn income tax. I don't like it. I don't think that it was done properly, even though they did pass a constitutional amendment. I think that they still instituted it incorrectly. And it's like, it's just a bad idea. I don't like it at all. So if Trump was making the case, at the very least, saying, hey, we're going to get rid of income taxes and we're going to go back to using tariffs because we can use tariffs way more strategically. We can still get money for the government. You guys, as the general population, shouldn't see too much in the way of your overall life standards, your living standards change that much, but you're going to see difference. The money's going to be going different places, from different places, to different places. Then I could say, okay, let's give this a shot, because we've been doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, and we kind of sort of been getting the same results. So maybe we should try something different. And I mean, at this point, it's like, yeah, sure, okay, maybe I'll give Kamala a chance to do something different, even though I don't think it's going to succeed, but at least it's something we're changing. We can start correcting. We can see, we get stuck in this. Well, we've done it this way for so long. And because we don't have a perfect plan to get ourselves out of it, we see lots of different problems. We forget just how bad the current situation is. So it gets a little bit frustrating on my end, looking through some of these things and trying to work through arguments. And it gets really frustrating when I'm saying there's some good strategic plans that could be afoot, except there's no evidence to support those plans exist. So I can't even make the argument that they're trying to do that. So it's like, well, based on everything that Trump and his incoming team is saying, it's like, this is going to be not good for really anybody. So yeah. I'm hoping that maybe they're keeping everything super quiet and they really want people to think he's just crazy. And they really have a good, brilliant, well thought out, executable plan, but I somehow doubt it.
I've looked for that too, and I will say this: you and I, we had a debate a while back on guns, and actually, I had a few more thoughts on that. We still discuss that issue, but I don't think I've ever met an interlocutor with whom I disagree as much and yet get so much charity. You apply maximal charity to anyone you're talking to, and whatever they say, and if they say, "Oh, I didn't mean that. What I really meant to say was," you're like, "Oh, okay, fine." And it's between the two of us trying to find, like, okay, where's the master plan here? Can you see a master plan? No, I don't see a master. Do you see any way this makes any sense by like logic, human mathematics, and even religion? I will look to like Plato and just see, did he say anything that could make sense of any of this? And the answer seems to be, from us and 39 economists, And the Cato Institute, nope, none of this makes any sense to anybody and is a really bad fucking idea. Sorry, I'm not supposed to swear. I keep forgetting that. Sinister Porpoise, $2. I feel like Trump is applying tariffs recursively. Exactly. The next thing you know, Trump is going to come out and he's going to be like, I've decided I'm going to put a tariff on all American tariffs. Any American tariff.
That's the next step. We're going to have to start tariffing to the tariffs.
Tariffing the tariff.
Like I said, I can see potential things, but all of this requires, all of the things when I've sat down and thought about, okay, how could this be beneficial? What could people be thinking that would make this worth the definite short-term pain that Americans will go through? It's like no matter how you get around that, it's going, unless they were to eliminate the income tax, which they're not even talking about. I mean, there's some fanciful floatings from Vivek and Elon. However, they don't really have any real power. They're not really in the administration. They're not holding official offices, etc. So I kind of get the idea that it's, hey, let's just kind of wish along about this. Let's see, how many people we can gin up on social media about this. So I don't see that really as happening. Because he keeps talking about, well, I want to give some tax cuts, and well, if you're considering that kind of stuff, it's like, why don't you then just say, hey, I want to eliminate the income tax and transition the government back to tariffs and excise taxes. But that's not being said. And then when I look at, okay, so that means that there's going to be some immediate harm done. There's going to be pain felt. Where's the strategic long-term benefits for this? Where we're setting ourselves up to be in a better place, for things to get better, for that pain to be relieved, to make this a worthwhile endeavor. Is there a strategic reason that we may need to tariff some things, and maybe they're trying to hide the exact thing that they're, the strategic areas in which they're trying to protect. And so I try and go through, and I'm trying to reason all this out. And I'm like, okay, I can see some good reasons for long-term planning, because none of this is going to happen quickly, but I can see some long-term advantages to possibly doing this, especially if you actually put stock in what Peter 𝐍𝐤𝐚 says about what's going on around the world, especially economically. And I'm like, okay, I can put some of these pieces together from here and some of these pieces from here, and I can come up with something that's like the most charitable thing possible. The problem is I can't make the argument, because while I can say, hey, they may be doing it for this, I could also say, hey, Jesus is directing Trump because that's what Jesus wants to have happen. I have the same evidence for both. So I have a really hard time trying to make arguments about things like that when there's zero evidence to support it. And it's like, give me something here, people, to work with, because all of the things you're talking about, the reasoning behind a lot of this tariffing, you seem to think it's just going to be okay. And no, it really won't be in the short term. But if you can make the case that we need to buck up and bear this short-term pain for a really good long-term positive, then I'll bet people would be willing to do that. As much as people are complaining about living paycheck to paycheck, it's like the United States as a country as a whole has been in worse positions before, where the government's had to go almost hat in hand to the people and say, we really need you to buck up and sacrifice for this because it's such a worthy goal. I'm thinking mostly of World War II. They did that, and the American people, responded well to it. They did their due diligence, and they got the job done. I don't see any of that happening. I don't have any evidence for any of that happening. So I'm just like, these are bad ideas. I can't from an Austrian economic point of view, I cannot justify these. Tariffs are generally bad. From a pure laissez-faire capitalist viewpoint, they're always bad because they, put distortions in the markets. Yep. And that's a bad thing. So I wish I could make a lot of these cases for some of these tariffs in some instances, and I really can't, because I don't have any evidence to support that that's why they're being done, when he's blatantly telling you why, his reasoning behind this. And so I'm like, these are bad ideas.
And to stop, I mean, out of curiosity, and to bring it back to the beginning, and then I'm going to cite my only one other interesting thing about this, and then I think we'll wrap it up. But to bring it back to the beginning, I mean, what he's arguing, at least for the original three countries, which are our three biggest $1.5 trillion in imports from these countries, not to mention what we export that's also going to take a huge hit. And he's going to hit tariffs on all of them. And Trudeau was pissed. You could tell Trudeau was pissed. He's like, we're going to match it dollar for dollar. They're going to pick and choose the industries that, or all of them, whatever it's going to take, so that every dollar that they lose because of these tariffs in trade, we're going to lose right back. So it's and the goal ostensibly is to get Canada to stop letting Americans into their country to take drugs and bring them back to the U.S. It's like, that's a border problem. If you want to deal with the border and Americans illegally bringing drugs into the border, guess which country should probably deal with that? America. This is really actually not that different from saying we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. Well, if it's a U.S. wall and the U.S. is concerned about people coming into this country, maybe the U.S. should deal with the problem, especially if it's Americans that are coming into the country. So all that notwithstanding, the other interesting thing the Cato Institute did was did a survey in the southern and Midwest regions of the United States on their thoughts on the proposed tariffs on Mexico. And the reason they asked them is because those are the areas that are going to get hit the hardest by tariffs on Mexico. They're the ones who most benefit directly from, literally, because they have to support the infrastructure of all the goods coming and going through Mexico. They found that the overwhelming majority of people supported the tariffs and believed that taxing Mexico was a good idea. That's what they said. I can't make this shit up. This is what they told the Cato Institute, and the Cato Institute observed that the people who are most going to be harmed by taxing Americans with these tariffs are the people along the border with Mexico who think that they're taxing Mexico and who are overwhelmingly in support of it. Democrats, let me just tell you something I know you already know, but somewhere along the line you failed in getting the message out. Whatever the message was, and it's been a couple of different things at different times, maybe that's your problem, I don't know. But, wow. All right. So
I have a suggestion.
Please.
To help with some of that, perhaps, just hear me out.
Uh-oh.
Perhaps when Trump does something even mildly positive, maybe loudly proclaim joy for that.
Give him credit.
Say, hey, great job. You did a really good job here. We really like your ideas behind this, or, even if it wasn't a super, big positive impact, just if it wasn't negative,
yep.
Maybe stop calling him Hitler. Maybe stop saying, he's going to be the end of democracy. Because when you get enough people screaming that constantly about absolutely everything, it completely loses its power. Now people just think that you're hysterical. Yep. Give him credit where even a charitable amount of credit could be given, and then say, we have some concerns about this. This is how tariffs work. I don't think this is going to work the way that you think it's going to work. Start maybe building at least the appearance of impartiality, I guess, and then make your case, because most of the people on the right that I know do not trust the mainstream media anymore. They've lost their credibility. So you can't really make the argument because they're not going to listen to you. And you could be 100% correct in saying, hey, this sky is falling. But if you said the sky is falling, even when it's mildly falling, all of the time about everything, people will tend, especially people who don't necessarily agree with you ideologically, are going to start just dismissing you. They're not going to pay attention. You're going to yammer on and say, hey, this is an important thing and this is going to cause a lot of damage. And most conservatives just like, you're just hysterical, and I'm done listening to you. I think that's one of the reasons why Trump won. So try to be as charitable as possible, even if you don't think he really deserves it. But I mean, you got to give him at least credit for when he doesn't screw something up. Maybe he doesn't make it better, but he doesn't screw it up either. Say, hey, great job on not screwing this up. It's like, you don't have to say, oh, well, you did the bestest job ever of everyone, but good job not screwing this up. And then the times that you really go, hey, this is really important, and we really need to pay attention to this because this isn't going to be good for the reasons that they have stated, and maybe say, hey, there could be a possibility of some strategic thinking here. We don't see it, and you're not telling us or giving us anything to go on to really think this is strategic. So we don't see it. This is bad. And maybe people need to wake up and say, hey, at least this is really, really bad. Don't do this. This is going to hurt people. It's definitely going to hurt the economy because tariffs in general are bad for the general population. So that might help get people's attention, especially people in the middle who feel alienated and left behind by the Democrat Party, generally because of some very small but very loud portions that identify as Democratic, or at least as the Democratic Party. That may possibly help with those people who are just like, I am sick and tired of the screeching. I think you're hysterical, and I am no longer listening to you. So now when you have something really important to try and stop, I am trying to stop some of the worst excesses of the conservative side as well, because they seem to be turning more towards revenge rather than good policy. And it's like we kind of need to stop this because we're just pushing farther and farther to more and more extremes. And nothing is going to get done, nothing, because we're just too opposed to each other. And we're going to have to bend at some point, or we're going to break.
I remember having a good friend during the W. Bush, and I remember thinking W. Bush would go down in history as the worst president ever. But he was getting attacked, and this was the same reason a while back somebody was doing the whole J.D. Vance couch thing. And I was making J.D. Vance couch jokes because they're funny. And somebody said, that really actually happened. He had that in his book. And I said, no, the jokes are still funny, and I still make the jokes, but only on the condition that everybody realize it's not true. He didn't put that in his autobiography. And it was like, well, no, maybe in one of the earlier versions. No, not maybe in one of the earlier versions. It was fact-checked by the New York Times, Rolling Stone magazine, and a whole bunch of others. Never actually... thank you, Titan. Remind me again. Never actually said that. And people started going like, why are you defending J.D. Vance? I'm not fucking defending J.D. Vance. I'm defending truth. And if you can't defend truth for people you despise, what's the point? If you don't stand up for free speech for the people you disagree with, then there's no such thing as free speech. J.D. Vance is a horrible human being. There isn't a lack of material for me to make fun of. And again, the couch thing is just funny. But it's a meme that got started on Twitter. It isn't true. And if Republicans are going to hold up sandals and say, oh, flip-flopper, or whatever they want to do for things that aren't true, then I get to make fun of things that aren't true either. But I'm going to recognize what's true and what's not. And the one or two times George W. Bush did something actually right. And I said, wow, okay, he got that one right. And people are like, oh my God, you're defending George W. Bush. No, I'm stating a fact. And if somebody doesn't have enough bad about them that you can't point out the good, then maybe they're not a bad person. Trump's got so much bad about him, it doesn't really cost me anything to point out the one or two times he does something right. I don't highlight them and I don't jump for joy at them because I don't find them cause for celebration, but I also don't deny them because once you start denying reality, and just saying all bad, all bad, all bad, you got nothing to work with, and there's no discussion. All right, so
yeah, why would any conservative, if you're just like, no, just Trump has done everything bad, and a Trump supporter is going to look at you and literally say, I have no reason to work with you at all. You're just doing nothing but attacking, the person I support. And I don't think that leads to good places. It's just a suggestion. I'm not saying that he's doing a whole bunch of wonderfully, swimmingly good things. And maybe he won't do something worth saying, hey, give him credit for that. He did a great job here. Maybe he won't have any of those moments. I don't know. He hasn't become president again yet. So maybe not. Maybe everything will just be an unmitigated disaster from the top down. And hey, maybe you just can't possibly support somebody that you genuinely believe to be a complete fascist. Okay, fine. I don't see things changing. So
well,
I guess you got to decide which of these hills you're going to plant your flag and say, here I stand and here I will die, and take the consequences as they come. I don't know. It's simply something that has genuinely helped me to take a look at people that I detest, like Nancy Pelosi, and say, okay, well, she did something good here. So it's not just, oh, I'm railing against everything this person has done because I just don't like them. And of course, nobody then grants me any kind of credit for being objective in any way, shape, or form, because there's lots of things that other people think that she did wonderfully. And I'm like, yeah, no, that was terrible. That was terrible. That was terrible. It's just all terrible. And can't even admit when there's something that, that was objectively good done, or objectively not bad, at least. So, you can do it or not. It's just a suggestion.
All right. And yeah, and to tell you the truth, honestly, that's one of the things I'm proud of about this show, which is we do try to, we do try to look at both sides as much as possible. Admittedly, there aren't two sides to every issue, but yeah. So, all right. Having said all that, Isandring, thank you very much for joining us on such short notice. Again, those of you who liked the introductory video, the nick of time, it's only 10 minutes. So if you know somebody who doesn't understand what a tariff is and you think that video could help them, we hope you'll pass that along. Please like and subscribe. Thank you to the two people who joined and became members today. We really appreciate that. Actually, I think it was 2 gifted memberships, but thank you for that. Thank you for all the super chats. What we're going to do now is Maya is doing her show, Bad Science Sunday. It's a little bit, I liken it to Mystery Science Theater 3000. They sit, they watch like a creationist or flat earther or something like that and go over the science. It is a hilarious show. So to give you guys an extra treat, those of you who stick around, and we hope you will, stick around right after the show. We're going to send you guys all over to her. I did remember the last thing I wanted to say is right now Trump's base loves what he's planning. That's in my view, and it's a convenient view, but I think the evidence supports it. That's because they don't understand it. And I know that their chief complaint about liberals is that we look down on them and say, you don't understand, and we're going to teach you. But on the flip side, this is actually reasonably basic stuff, and Trump doesn't understand it, clearly. And I'm sorry if that offends you and or makes you think that I'm being a elitist intellectual. The reality is this is what's going to happen. It's what happened when he did this with China, and it's what's happened every time somebody brings up huge amounts of tariffs against a country. And again, I'm not the only one saying this. Any economist who's looked at this, even on like the far right, says this is, the neoliberals are saying, yeah, this is a terribly bad idea. I think at some point when the economy starts to head south, they're going to realize that he's going to blame other people. Of course, it's not his fault. It's China, whatever. But the only way he's going to be able to fix it is to reverse course, which is what he did with China. Now, he didn't remove all of those tariffs. And by the way, speaking of being honest, Biden kept some of those tariffs too. Trump reduced the tariffs against China significantly. Biden kept them, and they remain to this day. They have had an economic impact. You can go look up what the economic impact is of China's original tariffs. They were actually really bad, but he managed to pull out of it before it became anything seriously permanent. But our economy has still suffered as a result of those tariffs. Isandring brought up reasons why maybe Biden would have wanted to keep them. He's kept some of them. They remain to this day. So my suspicion is Trump, once his base starts to suffer, is going to say, oh, you know why you're suffering? Biden screwed up the economy. Let me fix that up real quick and then reduce all of these tariffs. That's my suspicion. I don't know. Nobody can predict Trump. But for people who are really freaking out about this, again, if he really goes through with it full steam ahead and he's going to keep them for 4 years, economic catastrophe is absolutely the correct word to use. I can't fathom his base is going to let him do that. And it's not that they control him, but he wants their adulation more, that he needs that more than air itself. And they're going to get hit the hardest. So as much as I hate to say it, that's almost a good thing, because they're going to be the ones to start complaining first. And he's going to ask his advisors, what do you do? And they're going to say, yank the tariffs. So with hope, it isn't going to last long. But that is the Trump tariffs, what they're going to do to the U.S. economy, and why, despite what Isandring said and being charitable, I'm going to say Trump is probably fucking crazy. But I didn't just say that. Nobody. Did I just say that, Isandring?
Say what?
That's why he's
I'm charitable.
co-host. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. All right.
Am I not merciful?
Yes. Yes. So as I said, we'll be stick around. You get to see the credits. We worked hard on those credits. Those credits take like 8 hours to render, so stick around, watch those, and then after that, you're going to go over to Maya.
Thank you very much for including me in the. We worked really hard on that. I appreciate that.
Yes, Isandring does work hard. He watches those credits every single show, stays all the way through to the credits, and then afterwards we sit and chat for a while. So he actually has to suffer through those credits every single show. And we'll pass you on to Bad Science Sunday with Maya. It is a hilarious show. I hope you guys enjoy it and spend some time over there. Say hi to her.
Absolutely. Go give Maya some love. That's a great show.
It is, and they have a good. You can tell they genuinely have a good. It's nice to watch people who genuinely have a good time and they have a good rapport with each other. So go over and check them out.
Well, and sometimes it's great to look at it. Sometimes it's great to go over and look at. It's like, well, wait. People actually believe. People are making arguments for this. Really?
I don't know where they get these videos.
It's awesome. Know. Go watch.
I don't know.
I know. Some of them are just like, wow. It's like, are you on a newsletter for just the most out there kind of pseudoscientific, ideas, and they just send you a list, and you're like, hey, this one looked particularly crazy. Let's go after this one, because it is entertaining and informative to watch.
Absolutely. So thank you all very much. Thank you to our supporters, and come join us on the Discord if you want to learn more about the tariffs, Ukraine, anything else we cover. And we really do appreciate your support. You guys have been very kind to us. Have a great night.